Hello and welcome to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused pod from Escape Collective. I'm Suvi and this week, instead of the regular Dave and Ronan duo, you are getting me, Josh Weinberg, and Alex Hunt, and we've got plenty of cycling industry and new tech to talk about, and we're probably not going to talk about a single tool, I assume. So if you want to hear about tools, you'll have to wait for another pod. Josh, welcome back to the pod. I feel like you've not been on Geek Warning for quite a while. I think none of us have been for a while. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. It's good to be here again, Suvi. I think the last time I was extremely exhausted when we did our Info Review podcast. I was in an airport after having flown to Paris on my way to Germany from the States. So I was like super tired, but I'm well rested now and glad to be back.
Have you listened back to the podcast that we did record?
Sections of it, but I kind of don't. I don't want to know what I said because there's no going back now. So I'd rather just let that be and move on.
It's the same, is it not? Like actors say, or actresses, they don't watch the movies that they make. So it's the same. We just do the work, and then we just let it be.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't have to go back to it. And we've also got Alex here with us. Alex, I actually got to see you in person last week.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, we've seen each other twice in 2 weeks, which is more than in the last 12 months.
We've seen each other twice in 2 weeks and 3 times ever.
Yeah. And now it's going to be another few months.
Yeah. But no, it's good to, and we'll get onto it in a minute, but down in London last week for Rouleur, and it was nice to actually spend some time with you and chat bike tech. And yeah, you were on a Brompton, which was quite interesting to see. How's your experience riding around rainy London on that?
I love a wee Brompton. Like, it's one of my favorite bikes, even though it feels totally super twitchy in the beginning, and I'm rubbish at folding it in the beginning because I always forget what I'm meant to do first. But yeah, it's one of the best bikes, I feel, for city life, because once it gets too much and you get too lost, you can just jump on a bus or whatever other transport. Yeah. You can bring it in. It's great.
How quickly do you reckon you can unfold one? What's your record?
Oh my God. I was timed back when I worked in a bike shop. That's where I learned to fold and unfold the Brompton as well. And there was a whole list, the record times. I did not probably even make it to the whole list, even the sheet. I'm not great at it. I get it done, and that's the most important thing. But I'm not very fast. But it's surprisingly fast bike to ride.
Is it?
Yeah. It goes a good speed. And I've only got 3 gears, and only 2 of them work. So it needs to go fast. Anyway, but yeah, we were done in London last week at Rouleur Live, which is a big show. And I thought we're going to talk a little bit about that show and about these shows in general, because there's some new tech that come out at these shows, but mainly I would say, at least from my perspective, they're kind of industry mingling events as well. And in the last month or so, I would say there's been quite a lot of news around the bigger trade shows like Eurobike not doing too well in terms of attracting visitors. But Rouleur Live was quite a different vibe last week, because I felt it started on Thursday, so it runs 3 days. I did say before we started recording that it felt like we were sardines in a tin, because it was...
Yeah.
And it was like an empty tin as well, because the audio, what do you call it, acoustics in the venue are just horrible. It was extremely busy in my experience. Was it for you, Alex?
I think you've described it pretty well there, but all of us work pretty much from home all the time. You know, I might treat myself to a day in a cafe every now and then, but most of my days are just spent in a little cave typing away, speaking to no one. So to walk into a room of what felt like 1,000 or more people, all progressively talking louder and louder, it was an overwhelming time. It definitely took me a good hour or two to actually get into the zone of remembering how to socialize with people and say more than just my name.
Yeah, and then there's a decline at the other end of the show where
back to just saying my name again.
Yeah, don't know what my name is and what the other people's names were. But yeah, it was a very, very busy show. Have you looked at how many people were there this year?
I couldn't find any numbers on this year. I do know that at least the Thursday and Friday were both sold out. So whatever their capacity was, they managed that. And doing a bit of digging, I found the numbers from 2023. So not last year, the year before. But then over the 3 days, 6,000 people attended, which might not sound like huge numbers, but for anyone that's been to the Truman Brewery in London where it's held, you'll know that is a lot of people to have in that building.
Yeah, it's not a huge space. It's like, 4 rooms or so? And was it 80 exhibitors or something like that? So it's quite a lot of booths and then the people around that. It's quite a different experience to Josh, you and me were at Eurobike, and it's like pretty much the polar opposite of that in terms of just the scale of it, in terms of space altogether. New products there. Alex, did you see any exciting new things?
There's a pretty wild gravel bike. I know we've covered it in the past from Reap, who are a UK-based brand, but they'd made a gravel bike kind of not necessarily in collaboration, but with Dan Bingham in mind, where they'd kind of gone to him and asked what his ideal gravel bike would look like, and in classic Dan style, it is as aero optimized as it could possibly be. Yeah, tri-bar extensions and bottles mounted in any way other than on the traditional mounts. It's a pretty wild looking bike, but chatting to Ben at Reap, who is kind of the mastermind behind turning it into an actual product, it was interesting to hear his take on how this sort of bike is also perfectly in line with the spirit of gravel. He was saying that there's a lot of people that are quite anti seeing a bike that's kitted out in this way, but from his perspective at least, gravel is about, using whatever tool you want to ride a whole sea of different terrain. Just because you might not want to put tri-bars on and ride in a TT position on gravel doesn't mean that it should be prohibited for other people. It's kind of, you need to let it go both ways. It can be the kind of relaxed, almost mountain bike style riding, but it can also be more road TT style. And that's the beauty of gravel. You can kind of bring it all together into one vaguely umbrella shaped category. That was probably my favourite thing from the show, just seeing that, and it's pretty wild. It definitely got a lot of attention.
It did, yeah. So there was a prototype of that frame last year at the show, so this isn't technically like anything new either, but it did seem like Reap's really attracting a lot of people, and part of that was maybe also because of their booth location. Big part of Rouleur is the different stage talks, so they've got a lot of pros and founders of like some of the cycling companies attending, and then they do at the stage, they interview these people, and Reap was one of the brands exhibiting right next to the stage, so then the flow of people in and out of that kind of probably also helped in seeing their bikes. Was there anything else? I think for me the highlight, like there were so many bikes on show, but then so many people as well, that it was hard to even see the bikes at times. But if I had to say my favorite probably was more on the accessories side. It was new bike packing bags from POC. We were both having a look at those, Alex, and there were some quite bold aero claims on those as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I don't think that anyone's really thinking about bike packing bags being an aero upgrade for their bike. It's more about the adventure and making sure you can carry everything you're going to need. But yeah, at least for the front, the bar bag that POC are releasing, they're claiming that throwing this on the front of your bike could increase the efficiency by up to 6 watts, which for anyone that is chasing watts and cares about that kind of stuff, it's not to be sniffed at. 6 watts is a fair amount just by sticking a bag on the front of your bike to, keep a light charger or some spare batteries. So yeah, it's interesting to see that they've even gone to the effort of, quantifying and testing that for a bike packing range. So it does seem like maybe these bags are more aimed at the kind of fast bike packing kind of ultra racing community rather than the more leisurely bike packing scene.
Have you tried, Josh? POC has had bags previously. I think they've got like some black ones. These ones are white ones. Have you tried any of their bags before?
No, not any of the on bike bags. I've had I believe I've had a hip pack from POC in the past, and lots of other accessories, knee pads, things like that, but helmets, of course. But yeah, never any on bike bags. So definitely interested to see those. Does
6 watt claim? Do you think that's achievable?
I'm not the one to ask about that, but if it is true, I think it at least help offset some of the watts you lose using a dynamo hub or something. So that's.
Oh yeah, you're in the midst of testing that.
Yeah, trying to. Yeah.
And then the baggy T-shirt that you have to wear when you've got bike packing bags on.
Of course.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the watt losses in that? Not sure. yeah, in addition to those POC bags, there were a lot more stuff to be seen on show at Rouleur, and we did take some pictures. We're not going to do a full-on gallery, but we're going to put some of those pictures into the kind of pod article. So you're going to see those there with some captions and, yeah, get a look at what we saw. But we're going to move on to talk about trade shows more broadly now, because, like I said, it was quite hard to even see some of the products at Rouleur because the sheer amount of people. And I was talking mainly to people there about what the value of even showing those products at shows is. And there were lots of different answers to that, like what's the value of brands going to these events, but also what's there for just the visitors and what's there for the media. So I'm going to ask you, Josh and Alex, first. What do you think is the kind of purpose of these shows? What are they there for? Josh, do you want to go first?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
Oh, that's a good question. I think that I think that each one kind of like serves its own purpose. I mean, with Rouleur, I've always been super interested in that one. I've always wanted to go because I think it kind of has a unique approach and a unique niche that's different from a lot of the more like just very product focused shows that I've gone to. There's like kind of an industry and community element, it seems, to and cultural element to the Rouleur show. That's different from like, the frame builder showcases like Made or Bespoke, and then certainly different from like Sea Otter, where it's just a huge product expo and like the products are the focus rather than, I think like Made and definitely Bespoke try to incorporate other aspects into the shows to make it like not just about the things that you can or wish to buy, but the more general aspects of cycling and why we all kind of love to do it and participate in it, whether it's like group rides or seminars or something like that. But to me, like Rouleur focuses more on the cultural and community building aspects, and then the products are also kind of like there to view, and maybe I'm wrong about that, but maybe, but they kind of share like equal space. So,
and he's kind of at the end of the season as well. Like some of the brands they're exhibiting as well, where like this is like a season closer kind of show that's the last one for the season. And also it's easier, I guess, to get the pros and those speakers there because they're not racing. It's still their off season, I guess, as much as off season exists anymore. But it's a different type of show because of that as well.
Yeah, I almost think that something either like that or like the DT does the craft bike days, which it's not just limited to their own, talking about their own products. They open it up to frame builders and other brands. But I've often thought that something like that would be interesting to see how it would do in the States, as sort of like an off-season event in the winter here. Do it in Southern California or some like where I live in Southern Arizona, give folks a reason to find better weather and do some riding and also, engage with the community that way. But then again, it's just like adding another event to the calendar. And I think also a lot of folks enjoy not traveling during the off season, including myself. So there's that too.
Yeah. Because I heard from some people who'd come over from the US, they were saying that it would be great to have something like Rouleur over there, but they don't see it being feasible. That all the shows in the US are very different, like Made and Sea Otter, and there were lots of different reasons, and that there wouldn't be consensus on where that show would be held, I guess.
Interestingly, Frostbike is coming back next year. It's QBP's event. They're the parent company for, Surly and Salsa and Terravel tires and a huge distributor of cycling products in the States, not just their own. But it looks like they're having this event, and they're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is this very, in the wintertime, a very, very cold place. But the event's taking place in February. And I'm on the fence if I am going to travel out there and check it out, but it's it might be kind of that same vibe, but because it does look like they have a lot of programming along with like showing some products. But I think it's a lot of seminars and things like that versus just, exploring a big conference hall with tables and booths of gear set up. So,
like Eurobike.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably very different from Eurobike. I just have to make the decision of whether or not I want to leave super nice weather in February and go up to the icy cold of Minneapolis in February. So we'll see.
Yeah, time will tell. Alex, what do you think about trade shows? What's the value in them for us, for you?
For me, it's different now. I've been in the industry a few years, but it is always good to meet the brands or chat to whoever you need to chat to in person. We spend a lot of time communicating with people for emails, but they always tend to be very much to the point. You discuss what you're there to discuss in the email, and then that's kind of where the conversation ends. Where I find at trade shows, when you chat to whoever you run into, the conversations are just always way more open, and either ideas flow from us to them about things we could do, or the other way around, where they're suggesting things that we could cover, or ideas that they're pitching to us. And also, not so much at Rouleur, and I partly think it's because of where it is in the calendar, but other trade shows are great for us because quite often there are little back rooms with products that aren't released yet, that there might not be a proper media camp for, but it's just an opportunity to actually either snap some pics or get hands-on with a product that will be coming later in the year ahead of time. And I mean, for that, it's super valuable. But then I think looking back, like I used to go to a lot of the bike shows and I guess trade shows when I was a kid because there were magazines, but beyond magazines, it was quite hard to actually see products. Whereas, the classic culprit, but social media now, like I open my phone and all it is shiny bike parts. Like the appeal for consumers, I think, to necessarily go to the shows has probably reduced over the last decade or so because, it's not the opportunity to go and see stuff that you could rarely see now. Like I see it pretty much 10, 15 hours a day whilst I'm working and whilst I'm scrolling on my phone. So I think in that respect, trade shows are changing. Like I don't think there's a consumer value that was necessarily there in the past.
Mm-hmm. But there's not necessarily industry value either, because like you said about products, like where you can see them on social media, but quite a few of the brands that I spoke with as well said that there's no product launch cycles as such anymore. That say with the old Eurobike, which to be honest, I never attended it, like Interbike in the US, brands would have scheduled their launch around that show. And then now they just launch whenever it suits them. And they don't necessarily, Rouleur or even Eurobike, they don't necessarily have new products to show to the media. But then also for consumers, they might have just visitors. They've already seen everything that's there. So there's not as big of a value. And I guess that's also why Eurobike's struggling so much because it's just what's the value there anymore when everyone can do their own shows and smaller shows or social media campaigns.
I was just thinking about seeing the gallery, not necessarily from us, but the galleries that generally come out or the videos that come out is rarely is a full video or a full gallery of new exciting products. It's, showing off stuff we already know, or it is kind of diving into the niche brands that don't really get any mainstream attention because like you say, SRAM are going to do what SRAM are going to do. Shimano are going to do what Shimano are going to do. They don't need a Eurobike to launch products anymore. That's not, I don't think there is the value for the brand to hold off until then now in the digital age. So, I think in terms of just like general coverage, like it is harder to make general trade show coverage interesting because what's new that you haven't seen already? Yeah.
For us, it's definitely more it is a great opportunity to see products, loads of products in the same space and loads of people in the same space and get overly socialized. I think that's the conclusion.
One other thing I'll add about trade shows before we move on is, the couple I've been to for Escape in particular, it's also a great opportunity to meet members, especially at Rouleur. I ran into Michael, who's probably listening to this, but I've run into him at a couple of events now and it's always lovely to chat with him, but it is great to just be out in the community. If you see someone in an Escape t-shirt and you want to come and say hello and chat bikes, as long as you're a member, we're always open to having that conversation with you. If you're a free listener, you might get a wave and a handshake, but if you're a member and you help support the work we do, I'm always open to a chat, and it's always lovely to find out what you enjoy and what value you get from Escape, because that also helps us create content that better matches what you expect.
100%. And yeah, obviously Alex is joking. We'll talk to, even if you're not a member, but we do appreciate if you become a member to support our work. But it's great to hear, from people, because you don't always get the feedback about your work from the external sources. We got loads of members who comment on our articles, but to meet in person and actually chat and get to know them, it's amazing. I've had a couple encounters as well. Like there's a few local here in Glasgow, and it's great to meet in person. Righty. Enough about trade shows. We're going to move on to the new products that have been launched outside these trade shows that we've not even seen in real life yet. Starting off with Nukeproof. They are a brand that is not necessarily, Josh, that well known in the US. And they also disappeared over here with the Wiggle chain reaction mess. And then they got picked up by Belgian Cycling Factory. And then now they've got a new bike out. And I will hand this over to Alex because I sat through the presentation and I think all I said about the bike is that it looks very squishy. So Alex, what is the new bike about?
Yeah, I'll go back a little bit there with the whole Nukeproof's backstory because it is interesting. It's, you look at the website that's been relaunched and on the surface it looks to be, all the existing products that kind of ended when the collapse of CRC happened are back. You've got the Descent downhill bike, the Giga, the Mega, a new Reactor, which I'll talk about more in a second. And for a lot of people, I'm sure they'll be happy to see the Scout hardtails back. But yeah, this has been a long time coming. It kind of became well known that Nukeproof as a brand had been bought by the Belgian Cycling Factory in the summer, but this is now official that they are taking things into their own hands and proceeding with launching new products. And the new Reactor, which is their trail bike, I believe was kind of in production or heading into production. Everything went south for the brand, and this is kind of it being picked up and resumed, which is great to see. And yeah, it's a brand's trail bike, but the V2 has upped things in a trend that we see quite often, where instead of it being a 130 rear travel and 140 front, it's gone up to 140 on 150, which, having ridden the original Reactor, I'm not sure if it's where I'd like the platform to go. I quite like having good options in the 130 travel kind of area. It's good for all-day rides, more pedally. And I also think, there's a lot of times where having a little bit less travel makes trails really fun. But yeah, there are a couple of really interesting things, actually, that Nukeproof are now doing under their new ownership away from the Reactor. One of which is the warranty, which is now, as long as you register, they're going to offer a lifetime warranty, which not only applies to the original owner but can be transferred to a second owner, which is great for ensuring the bike has a full life rather than just kind of. It's always better to sell a bike with a warranty and easier to sell a second-hand bike with a warranty, and that also extends to a 2-year bearing warranty. But one of the things I think is really cool to see that comes as standard across the carbon and alloy Reactors is they're all coming with ride wraps fitted already. So this is kind of like a clear vinyl protective film, essentially, that just protects the paint from rock strikes and just wear and tear. And all the new Reactors will be shipping with that, which I think is really cool and just a nice little value add touch. It's not necessarily an expensive thing to do yourself, but yeah, the hassle of having to get a new bike delivered and then probably take it to a bike shop or mess around with it yourself, it's just nice to not have that step to consider.
That does sound very nice. Are we going to see you ride one?
Yeah, I'd love to get on one. I think it'd be interesting to see where the Reactor platform's gone. I think, especially away from some of the heavier hitting riding areas in the UK, I think the Reactor V1 was kind of the perfect bike as a do-it-all mountain bike. So I'd be curious to see how up and over travel has affected that, but also I know they've adjusted the geometry a little bit and fixed the seat tube angle, which was something that had caused reviewers in the past a little bit of a gripe. So yeah, if I can get one sorted, I'll definitely be keen to swing a leg over and see how it goes.
What was wrong with the seat tube angle?
A little bit slack. Yeah, I think especially when you look at when the Reactor came out to now, trends in mountain bike geometry have been for steeper seat tubes just to help with that pedaling efficiency on the steeper climbs. So for a bike that's kind of designed to be a bit of a mile muncher, it'll be good to see how that's impacted the handling and the performance.
Well, we'll see when you ride one. what you think of it. Well, moving on to another off-road category, new bike. Ritchey as a new gravel bike, but it's not just any gravel bike. Josh, you know all about this because there's a full review out on the site by the time this pod goes live. But tell a little bit about this bike.
So you're right. It's not just any gravel bike. And really, I think you could also call it an all-road bike, but it fits big tires, so I'm calling it a gravel bike. And its geometry is kind of leans that way too. But it's called the Septimer. It's Ritchey's newest breakaway bike. It's carbon fiber. And by breakaway, I mean that it splits into two halves. So the front triangle kind of splits apart from the rear triangle, allowing you to put it in a pretty small case that is also included with the bike, to make it easy for traveling. So if you're familiar with like the post carry or Oro case, they make some really small travel cases for bikes that require you to like pretty much pull all of the components off your bike, including the crank, in most cases to kind of shove in there. With the breakaway system though, because the bike breaks apart into two halves, you don't need to take quite as much apart, and it just allows you to break it down and then put it back together fairly quickly and efficiently when you get to your destination. And then the other thing too is because it fits in such a small case, you don't have to worry about too many logistics when you're even just getting to and from the airport or the train station. The bag is under what most airlines consider to be oversized, and the whole package only weighs about 30 pounds. So the bike is like 19, and then the case is like 11. So it's a little over that, but not by too much. So you have plenty of room to shove some shoes and cycling kit and tools in there as well, and pretty much get everything you might need for a trip in the bag. I used it on a couple of trips and rode it around a bunch at home, and I thought it was just a really nice all-around gravel bike. It rode kind of how I would expect, and similarly to quite a few of the gravel bikes that I've ridden recently that are kind of in that more kind of like all-around, all-road, non-racy geometry. There is no UDH compatibility, so you can't put one of SRAM's newest derailleurs on there, but they still do offer plenty of just traditionally mounted derailleurs. And then, of course, Shimano's new Di2 systems go on there just fine. There's a front derailleur that is included, so you can run 2x or 1x systems with it, and it takes up to a 700 by 48 tire, but I have heard from the folks at Ritchey that they've been fitting 50s in there with a little bit of clearance on either side. So if you're not riding in the mud or wet conditions or something, you can get a pretty big tire in there, which I think again goes into making it quite a versatile bike. And because it is a travel bike, there are some things to be considered with how you build it up and what kind of components you have on it, and how you say like split the brake lines apart if you want it to be pretty quick and easy to do. And I go into all of that and much more in the review that, as they all do, turned out quite longer than I initially thought it would be, but there was quite a lot to talk about with this bike.
But it was really good when you talked about the different options, because that's the biggest hurdle probably is you only get the frame, right? They don't sell it built. Right. So you do need to consider what you're going to actually then build it with. It's because you can't just break things apart, not all things, I guess, into two.
Yeah, right. So there's coupling systems that you can get for cable pull brakes, and then there are some that you can get for hydraulic lines too. Those, I think in the past weren't really regarded too well, but there are some newer versions now that I've heard really good things about. I don't have hands-on experience with the hydro couplers, at least not any of the recent ones. So it's something that this project kind of made me realize I might want to look into, maybe something for next year. But just another thing to potentially add to my list, because I think they have other applications, more than just travel bikes. So, something interesting to think about.
I think someone had asked you in the comments, maybe you responded to it as well, but I'm curious, did you time how long it takes to take it apart and pack it and take it out again?
Yeah, on average about 30 minutes, I think, going either way. I think I got it even closer to 20 when I, by the time I had to send it back after I'd done it quite a few times, it became easier. I kind of developed a system. I knew what I was doing. At first, though, when I opened the case and saw everything inside all, broken down and all of the components like stored in the little pockets of the bag, it was a little bit overwhelming. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this every time. Because as I also mentioned in the review, I'm used to using one of Evok's travel bags for, I can fit my mountain or gravel or road bike in the same bag. It's pretty large. It can fit most of my XL mountain bikes, but it just becomes like unwieldy and super heavy. But the cool thing about that bike is you only have to take the handlebars and wheels off, and then the bike just kind of goes in the bag. The handlebars, you keep the brake lines attached, and then just like kind of strap the handlebars to itself as if you were like shipping a bike. But even with that, there's time involved in unbolting the handlebars, strapping them to the bike, taking the wheels off, taking the rotors off if that's something that you want to do, and then like putting them in their various compartments. So when you consider that, and then just the few extra steps that you have to take with the Ritchey and unbolting the two halves of the frame are probably like the quickest part of it. And then you just have the other things like taking the handlebars and wheels off. There were some other things that I did with the Ritchey that I wouldn't have done on, if I were using my Evok bag, but they only take, a minute or two each. So really it's quite a comparable process as far as time goes. But then the reward with the Ritchey breakaway system is that you just have this like tiny case, not tiny, but relatively small case to lug around with you when you're traveling versus the huge Evok bike bag that I'm used to. So
yeah, if you talk about time, I think the time I've traveled with big bike boxes or bags, the time it takes to find a transport method that you can take that bag or box onto, it can easily add half an hour to a trip, because normal taxis won't take it. I mean, I've had them take bike boxes and then it's just dangling half out the boot and you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? It's definitely a lot more convenient. I travel sometimes with the Post Carry Co. I've got that one, the small bag, and it's so handy for that reason. And I was the same when I was reading your review. It made me think, it's the first time I had to pack my bike into it, obviously had to take quite a lot off the bike and be comfortable with that. And I was like, how am I going to put this all together? And this takes forever. And you're learning how to put all the padding on and different bits. But then you get faster at it, or just don't care as much anymore. You just shove it all in.
How close do you reckon it gets to how long it takes for you to unfold your Brompton?
The packing of the bike still takes longer than the unfolding and folding your Brompton. Definitely. It's not comparable. But I think someone pointed in the comments as well that they would still not travel with their bike. Alex, would you get a small bag, a travel bike, or hire a bike, or a big bag? 4 options. Which one would you choose?
What type of bike am I taking? Like, what type of riding am I going to do? Because I don't think I'd hire a mountain bike. I think I'd always want to be on my own. Like
gravel bike,
a gravel bike, I'd probably consider hiring. I think I also just appreciate having a nice, easy travel experience. If I know I can hire a gravel bike from a brand where I've either ridden it before, I know it's going to be a position I'm quite happy in. I'd be more than happy to hire a bike and just fly light, fly stress free, and also not worry about getting to the other airport at the other end, and my bike arrives in 3 or 4 different pieces, which I have seen happen on multiple occasions. But I think with a mountain bike I would just deal with the hassle of a big bike bag and all of that, just to make sure I'm on something that's set up how I like it. And there's just more customization on a mountain bike that probably would prevent me from hiring a bike.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like that for gravel bikes too. I feel like there's like, I want my own gravel bike. There's like, I just want that. I want that familiarity, and I want, there's like all these little things that I do to my bikes that, if I'm traveling, I'm probably going to be riding it, like probably be doing something kind of silly with it anyways. So like, I just want, I want to know the bike and take that variable out of the situation. So, yeah, I don't know. I think, one of these might find its way into my collection eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does sound like a good one. And it only arrives in 2 pieces instead of 3 or 4.
Yeah, right.
My question to you though on that topic, Josh, like you were talking about like wanting to take your own gravel bike for familiarity. Like how much time do you think you'd spend on a breakaway bike not traveling for it to not still feel unfamiliar?
Yeah, that's a good question, Alex. And I think it's something that I tried to explore in the review. Like I would feel very comfortable on this particular bike, like having it be my only sort of like all around daily driver gravel bike. I would absolutely, and I would recommend it for that too. I don't think it's pulling any punches. You're not making any sacrifices with this bike other than if, you really just had to run a transmission, on it. Like you can't do that because it doesn't have a UDH compatible dropout. But other than that, like I don't really see any reason to not use this as your regular, gravel bike. So that said, if you're riding it, weekly, then, you become super familiar with it. And when it comes time to travel, just split it apart, throw it in the case, and you're on your way. I do think like some of the, I know Dave reviewed a version of a breakaway bike like a while back with he was, with, another publication at that point. I reference it in this review too. And I know that one kind of had like a funky geometry. It was kind of like, it didn't fit him as well as he would want it to, but like it did have the benefit of being able to travel well. So he would kind of like, he would use it and he would deal with it. But I don't think it was a bike that he rode on a regular basis. But I think they've definitely remedied that with, kind of the more normal geometry, and then some other, like versatile features like, the options to use mechanical or hydro brakes and other cable routing, wireless or mechanical drivetrains, all that good stuff. So I think it would.
No extra small frame though.
No extra small. So I don't exactly know how that translates to height. Do they have it on the website now? They didn't have it before.
The small's quite small, but it's not the shortest. Like I was looking at it, but
yeah, could you ride the small Suvi, or is it still too
at
big
a push?
for you?
Because I think you said as well, it's quite a long bike that your reach was. Yeah, I think it would be a struggle. It was 380 reach for the small, and that's really pushing it. For me, I would be on a stub of a stem.
And remind us what your height is again, Suvi, just for comparison's sake.
I'm 5'4", 164.
Oh, 5'4". Okay. Interesting.
No, I think but it depends as well. I think Josh said as well, like whether you have a long torso or short torso, and like height isn't the only thing to think about.
But you've managed in the past to get your normal road bikes into the airline friendly bags, haven't you, Suvi? Like a breakaway style bike isn't like a essential for you to kind of get away with not paying for the handling fees.
Is it essential for anyone? But
I don't think you're getting like an XL, not an oversized, I guess.
No, yeah, that's very true. Like the post carry bag that I have as well is the smaller version, and obviously because my frame's so small, it's easy for me to fit it. But my friend's frame, like he tried to borrow it once, and it was really a squeeze to push it in. It would really need the bigger bag. So yeah, that's true. My bikes are so small, and I can ride a Brompton. There's a gravel version of a Brompton. Easy. We're going to move on, talk about something a little unusual, I guess, as well. Not something you see much around. 32-inch wheels or rims, new ones. Again, Josh, you know the most about these as well.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So this one's interesting. It's kind of like it's similar to what we saw. So Astral, the Oregon-based wheel company here in the States, they had rolled out some 32-inch wheels. I don't know if they are for sale yet, but they were seen at both Made, and we saw them again at Bespoked. Basically just a kind of a larger version of a rim that Astral already makes. They were able to, kind of use the same manufacturing processes to just make the rim in a larger diameter. Velocity, which is also based here in the States, they are in Michigan. They just announced that they are going to have a 32-inch version of their Blunt 35 rim available, I think starting in December is when it'll be available. So two brands now making aluminum 32-inch wheels in the US here. And what's interesting is that like there is a demand. They wouldn't make them if there's not a demand, if they hadn't been getting requests for them. So I think it's mostly still from the kind of custom frame builder segment, but it was the tires that were the first domino to fall there. So, with that Maxxis Aspen tire becoming more and more available in that 32-inch diameter, folks are building bikes around it and they need wheels. So Velocity is the latest one to join that. They are going to have appropriately sized spokes available, and their wheel department is going to be building complete wheel sets. They stock a variety of different hubs. It's all on their website, and can build wheel sets too. They don't just sell the rims, so you can get a whole wheel set sent to you from Velocity. So I think it'll, again, I don't think it'll be a lot of individuals just going out and buying those wheels yet, unless you're building up a custom frame or a production frame. Newhouse, they have their Nova production frame. I think pre-orders are open now, or they might even be closed already, but my understanding is that those frames will be in from their Taiwanese manufacturer in the spring. So, that'll be kind of possibly the first production 32-inch bike available. It's a fully rigid bike, non-suspension corrected fork. So it's a fully rigid mountain bike, or I guess you could ride it as a gravel bike too if you put drop bars on it. So things are happening in that 32-inch space. And I think probably we'll see a lot more in 2026 from some of the bigger brands, but nothing for sure yet.
Does Alex have anything to add? Would you ride 32-inch? Are you pro 32-inch, Alex?
I'm undecided. Like, I totally see the benefits. I'm not a tall man. Is the stumbling block for me. So I'm 5'7", and we'll give myself a half as well. So I think that's like 170 centimeters. My biggest reservation is just making sure that the handling and also the suspension characteristics for like a small medium frame works for me with 32-inch wheels. I think for people that are kind of towards the taller end of the spectrum, 5'10" and above maybe, I think it makes total sense. I think the benefits are easy to understand, and I'm sure in time we'll see it become as 29 did to 26. But there is an upper limit, right? Like for wheel size, I think it's easy for us to all say, 45-inch wheels won't work for most people. So I think it's just working out what size bigger wheels do start impacting what frame size. Because, a 32-inch wheel on an extra large will work fine. A 32-inch on an extra small probably is at least going to run into some complications. I don't know quite to what extent, but it's not going to be the same. So I'm just curious to see from that perspective how 32-inch comes in, and if it works for me, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think suspension further muddies those waters, and just because the geometry of the bikes has to be tweaked in such a way to fit the suspension on there. So I think that's why Newhouse is not making the bike, or they're selling it with a non-suspension corrected fork because that's how the geometry kind of worked out. Once you get beyond that, it starts to get super funky. So yeah, we'll see what the bigger bike brands do once they start putting suspension forks on it, because I can guarantee you no one's going to come out with a bike that needs to be ridden rigid. That's not, especially a mountain bike. That's not gonna work. So, yeah, we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm just kind of thinking whether we're going to start having 3 wheel sizes, but I don't think that's going to happen. That we would have small, medium, and large wheels for bikes. That
well, Suvi's 26 ain't dead either, so
it's not dead. No, no.
Oh, that's 4.
It's like 1 foot in the grave. I don't know.
I want to see you on a 32-inch bike, Suvi. I think by the end of the year, hopefully we can see that.
By the end of the year is ambitious.
Yeah. Okay.
Regardless of what bike it is, yeah. It's gonna be, I can't reach even the pedals probably. Sit on the top tube kind of ride. Don't mind it.
Like on a tractor.
Yeah. You have seen me with a 32-inch wheel though. Because I have.
That's true. Yeah.
Your bike, I have held one up. So that's I've got experience of them. We're going to move on, and there's been quite a few tech launches, new products launching this week, and we've got all of those written on our website, so you can go and scroll through the daily news. That's where usually these kind of smaller product launches go. But we're going to talk about one more, which is a new helmet called Lazer Impala. I have just learned what Impala is. Alex, you know more about the helmet as well.
Yeah, so sticking to kind of the mountain bike theme for this product, it's a new trail helmet from Lazer. The Impala's been around for a while, but this is an update to the helmet. It's using new technology from the brand called Dual Core, which essentially uses 2 different density foams in the helmet's construction to help dissipate energy better. So rather than just having the helmet use, one polystyrene foam for the bit that touches your head all the way to the hard polycarbonate shell, it now uses two different foams, and the idea is that this is kind of a technology to help with both linear impacts, which is like straight on crashes where you just kind of headbutt something, and rotational impact forces, which are the ones we know can cause concussions and are potentially the more dangerous ones. And this is Lazer's new take on a technology to kind of rival MIPS in what they offer. And there's also new technologies coming out from the likes of RLS, who have paired with Canyon. That helmet's unreleased, but is on Virginia Tech's website. So that technology is kind of becoming a little bit more well known. Unfortunately, at the time of this podcast and at the time of the product launch, the Lazer Impala hasn't been to Virginia Tech, so there's no comparable data to say how the dual core performs. But yeah, it looks like a positive update to how Lazer are doing things, and I believe Josh has one to review. So I'm really keen to see how you find it, because I think there's also some nice nifty features built in, as well as this dual core technology around kind of goggle retention and glasses storage and also camera mounts. So I think it's, a well-rounded modern day trail helmet. If it has increased impact protection that can help with both linear and rotational impacts, I think that's only a good thing, especially for mountain biking, where crashing is an inevitable part of the activity.
Yes, I do have one, Alex. It is going to be part of a group test that I'm doing on trail helmets. That was kind of the last one I was waiting for. I knew it was coming out, but wasn't available until just recently. So I do have it in. It is a super interesting addition to the group. There was a lot of development in trail helmets, and I'm kind of calling them trail helmets. Helmets that kind of like cover a good portion of the back of the head, have visor, and are basically just short of being like a full face, or the 3/4 that also cover the ears. But with that though, I think it takes a little bit of time for the University of Virginia Virginia Tech ratings to come out. So I don't think that one is available yet, and that's something that I do want to see before I, really start putting pen to paper on these. So waiting on a couple of other helmets too. Do you know how long that usually takes after a helmet is available, or what that process is like for brands like submitting for that?
It really depends. I think it's down to when the brand wants that information out, because like I say, Canyon's deflector helmet isn't out yet. We can expect it to be out, I guess, pretty shortly, but I think as soon as Virginia Tech have their findings, they publish them. They make that public. So I think some brands wait until the product is released before sending it off to get testing to protect that element until the embargo lifts.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I imagine we'll be looking about the next month or two before we see that emerge.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely something I need to look into and chat to the brand about to get that timeline, because I think I have all the helmets that I'm going to have at this point. So it's time to start evaluating them more than just how they fit my head. So that'll be a good one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the helmet space at the minute. And like I say, I was chatting to RLS, who is a startup essentially out of London that's probably quite unknown at the minute, that's creating a technology to kind of rival what MIPS offer and what dual core might offer as well, kind of with that rotational impact. But, I was chatting with them before Rouleur. I went to give them a visit, and I'm sure there'll be a story coming at some point in the not too distant future on the stuff we spoke about. But, just talking about how helmet testing happens and what the standards say, but also the data they're finding about how, for especially performance orientated cycling, so, road racing or downhill mountain biking or cross country where the speeds are higher, the tests that helmets have to go through aren't necessarily that representative of the forces that will actually happen in a crash. The data they're getting from testing helmets that they might partner with or testing competitors, it's actually quite interesting, and in some cases quite alarming to see how different real world crashing can be to what helmets have to pass to be able to end up on the shelves.
There's been quite a lot of kind of new testing and new research into this, I feel, this year. And because Virginia Tech, did they change the protocol, was it, earlier this year? And then they reshuffled basically the whole list.
Yeah, so they made their thresholds different. So essentially they made it harder to get a 5-star award. And that's basically because helmets have moved on so much in the last couple of years that, a lot of helmets were getting 5-star ratings, which was kind of making the system a little bit worthless. A 5-star is a 5-star at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you get a 5-star by 0.1 points or by 5 points. Like, 5 stars, the same all round. So yeah, they adjusted that to make sure that kind of only the best of the best helmets get the 5-star rating, and others fall into the 4, 3, and 2 ratings instead. But yeah, I think it's really cool because whilst the standards are looking to change in the next couple of years, and they are going to feature testing specific to rotational impact more heavily, or in some cases just include it to begin with now, it's cool that helmet safety is something that helmet brands are all proactively striving to improve. It's good that, without necessarily a requirement, safety in a performance helmet is being considered. And I think it's something that, I was chatting to the guys at RLS about this. Helmets are kind of in a weird space, especially on the road now, where a lot of people buy them not with safety as the first priority. Helmets are kind of bought by a lot of people now with how they perform for aero or how they cool, and then safety might be the third or fourth consideration. But ultimately, that's the main reason we're putting them on our heads in the first place. So it's cool to see brands keep that main focus.
But also keep it main focus, but also aim to make helmets that are safe but people want to wear. Because I remember doing interviews with helmet brands as well, and one of them was very clear to say that, well, the helmet's not any safe if the person doesn't want to wear it. I remember as a kid when, I got given a helmet and I was meant to wear it. It wasn't even cool. It was a rubbish helmet. So I would put it on to leave the house and then put it on the handlebar after because it wasn't cool and I didn't like the look of it. But I bet if I had got a helmet from the shop that I liked the look of, I would have proudly worn it. And fair enough, that was me as a kid, but it's the same still applies. I don't want to wear a helmet that I don't like the look of. But if it's safe and it looks good, it's the perfect combo. So that's what we need more of. All riding about in full face helmets soon. That look really cool. Maybe that's the next trend. Make them aero. I mean, the aero helmet is basically a full face anyway. I think that's it for this trade show, new product heavy Geek Warning episode. Thank you, Josh, and thank you, Alex. It was very nice to podcast with you, and thanks for everyone for listening. I think there's not going to be Ask a Wrench in this episode, and that is usually the member-only section of this podcast. So you're all going to get to listen to the full podcast this week, which is great for you. But if you want to hear the Ask a Wrench sections, then do please consider becoming an Escape member and to read all the content on our website as well. You'll get access to much more if you're a member. So head over to escapecollective.com. Thank you.
Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.